Hello, and welcome to another Dune lore video. The hype for Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Dune is building. Official images of some of the cast have been released, giving audiences a sneak peek into the universe of Dune and the intricate characters of Frank Herbert's creation. In this video, I'd like to delve into yet another incredibly intricate character who is a vital piece of this epic story, Doctor Wellington Yueh. I will be talking about some very key plot points in the story of Dune, however, so if you're not familiar with the book or the previous adaptations and want to be completely surprised, then you might want to click away now, as this video will contain potential spoilers as I discuss what we can expect to see from this character. In making these lore videos, I have come to more fully appreciate Frank Herbert's ability to craft each individual in this story with such complexity, such care and effort. It is clear that most of the characters in Dune, no matter how minor they may seem in comparison to the main characters, are given important roles that play a vital part in the outworking of the overall story. This is especially true for Dr. Wellington Yueh. While he can be considered a secondary character, his actions in the Book of Dune have far-reaching effects that forever change the course of the universe. When the story of Dune begins, the members of the Honorable House Atreides are making the move at the Emperor's command to govern Arrakis, the valuable yet deadly desert planet more commonly known as Dune. Right away, however, it becomes known that beneath the surface of this generous offer, a conspiracy is being orchestrated to facilitate the Atreides' downfall. From almost the very beginning, House Harkonnen's strategy is laid out before us, as the Baron gleefully relates the genius of his plan to his nephew, Feyd-Rautha. With the aid of his twisted mentat, Piter de Vries, they've concocted a scheme to end the Atreides line, while the Baron secures his position of power back on Arrakis. Their entire plan, however, hinges on their asset that sits within House Atreides. That notion itself is a hard pill to swallow. The Atreides are a noble family. The Duke Leto is a fair-minded, charismatic ruler who treats his people well, and has garnered undying loyalty from everyone in his service. It seems improbable that their enemies could find someone within the house to betray them, but it turns out to be someone they would never suspect. Dr. Wellington Yueh, personal physician to Duke Leto Atreides and mentor to his son Paul. He is a graduate of the Souk School of Medicine, and his most notable quality is his imperial conditioning, signified by the black diamond tattoo on his forehead. This conditioning makes it impossible for him to harm anyone. A Souk doctor is incapable of betrayal or taking the life of those under their care, and there is no way to remove this conditioning without killing the subject. This makes Souk doctors highly desirable among the great houses, especially those like Duke Leto who have powerful enemies. Dr. Wellington Yueh is a tragic figure. A year before he came to be in the service of House Atreides, his wife, Juana Marcus, a member of the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood, was captured by the Harkonnens. Like Gurney Halleck, Duke Leto took in Dr. Yueh, who was yet another victim of Harkonnen treachery and sadism. Dr. Yueh has been in the service of the Atreides for 6 years when the story of Dune begins. He's watched Paul grow up and feels great regard for him and for his family. However, all these years he's continued to suffer great emotional agony by the uncertainty of his wife's fate and being helpless to save her. He rarely talks about his wife, as the pain and hatred that results from doing so can easily overwhelm him. Although it seems impossible, after years of psychological pain, he gives in and agrees to do the Baron's bidding, taking part in a scheme that will lead to the Atreides' downfall, an act that in itself he should not be capable of. The manner in which Dr. Yueh's conditioning could be undone is truly a fascinating subject. In this video, I'll be discussing what we can gather regarding this from information contained in the Book of Dune. This subject can make for quite an extensive discussion, especially when taking into account the expanded universe of Brian Herbert's making, which has served to complicate the matter. But that's a video, or perhaps several videos, for another day. For now, I'll be discussing what we can gather from Frank Herbert's first installment, Dune, and the information it provides. There is not a whole lot of clarity in point-blank statements as to exactly how Dr. Yueh's conditioning was undone, but honestly, I feel that there is plenty here in the first novel to be able to explain it, so I will be going off of the breadcrumbs that Frank Herbert left. As I stated before, this is a fascinating subject because the idea of one going against their imperial conditioning is inconceivable. However, as the twisted mentat Piter de Vries says, given the right lever, you can move a planet. We found the lever that moved the Doctor. This is definitely a very simple way to describe the complicated process involved in undoing the Doctor's conditioning. Actually, it could probably be best described as counter-conditioning. While the Baron holding his wife captive and threatening torture and death unless he complied with his demands was certainly a factor, this alone wouldn't have been enough. Imperial conditioning would not have the reputation that it does if it's simply a matter of holding a loved one hostage in order to break it. The Baron's sociopathic mentat Piter found a way to make Dr. Yueh view the inflicting of harm as a necessary evil, specifically inflicting harm on the Baron himself. This should really demonstrate the sadistic genius behind the Baron, and especially that of his twisted mentat Piter, in showing how they've manipulated the Doctor to do their bidding. This reconditioning didn't happen overnight, and Dr. Yueh may be the Baron's agent, but he is far from a willing subject. Though blackmail in itself isn't enough to break Imperial conditioning, his deep love for his wife was certainly a factor. This, coupled with the fact that he was subjected to years of mental anguish by the Harkonnens, not knowing if his wife was dead or suffering far worse, facilitated his slow descent into madness. Through years of psychological torture, they succeeded in making the Doctor capable of inflicting harm, the very thing he was conditioned against. However, in doing so, they forged a double-edged sword, as now the Doctor will do whatever it takes to exact his revenge by inflicting harm upon the Baron. Everything the Doctor does seems to be motivated by contrasting feelings. He's determined to know the fate of his wife, but the only way to do that is to see the Baron. Because of his wife's training as a member of the Bene Gesserit, he'll be able to determine what happened to her from observing the Baron himself, and the only way to get close enough to do that is to follow along with the Baron's plan. To do so means betraying House Atreides. While he now is capable of inflicting harm on others, that doesn't mean his love and loyalty for the Atreides is diminished. Events were set in motion that would have transpired regardless of what Dr. Yueh had decided. If he wasn't to be used as the Harkonnens' pawn, it would have been someone else. With the Baron's single-mindedness in achieving his goals and the cruel and devious methods he's known to employ, along with having the Emperor's resources at his disposal, he most certainly could have found another way. But by his accepting this terrible burden, he also sees a way to protect Paul and to save the Atreides legacy. This too, I believe, is key to understanding the Doctor and what's happened to him, and how he was able to reason within himself to justify his actions, and even though his actions are traitorous, they are also the only means for the Atreides' long-term survival. I guess in a way, his conditioning was never fully subverted, but rather it was reshaped. Dr. Yueh's actions also provide a deep look into the stark contrast between the Baron and the Duke. The Baron's cruel methods, while effective to a degree, also breed contempt and betrayal from others, while the Duke has the undying love and loyalty of those in his service. Perhaps this is best illustrated by Dr. Yueh, that even when pressed into doing his enemy's bidding, his ultimate goal is to eliminate the Baron, while still acting in the Atreides' best interest. I've always found this to be a fascinating choice by Frank Herbert, to reveal the identity of the Baron's agent within House Atreides before we ever encounter him. The first thing we find out about Dr. Yueh is that he intends to betray the Atreides, though we don't yet know how or when. Right away, we are clued into his inner thoughts. He cares very deeply for the Atreides and for Paul in particular. At the beginning, Paul is eager to learn about Arrakis, and Dr. Yueh prepares him with knowledge about the planet, its people, and the giant sandworms that roam throughout. It's a touching moment. It's obvious he cares very much for Paul. He can't even stand himself as he talks with Paul, knowing that he plays a part in the tragic events that are about to befall them. He is a tortured man, and honestly, a part of me can't help but sympathize with him. He is a victim driven to madness, though he is able to hide it extremely well. He may be calm on the surface, but on the inside, there is a war going on. I applaud Frank Herbert's ability to create a character with so much depth. The impact of Dr. Yueh's role in this story cannot be overstated. Dr. Wellington Yueh was first portrayed by Dean Stockwell in David Lynch's 1984 film, and by Robert Russell in the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries in the year 2000. Unfortunately, in my opinion, both of these previous adaptations weren't able to fully capture the nuance of his character. There is so much more to him than meets the eye. What also concerns me is that there is a lot of internal dialogue that allows the reader into the mind of this character. However, this probably won't be conveyed in this film as a voiceover. In the book, being able to know the character's thoughts helps the reader to understand the conflict going on inside Dr. Yueh, and it helps you appreciate the fact that he is able to hide it so well. So in order to capture the inner dialogue, it will definitely have to be handled with care. I think this requires a deep knowledge of the character on the part of Denis Villeneuve and the newest actor to take on this role, Chang Chen. Recently, an up-close image was released of the actor in this role, and I must say, this picture alone gives me hope in his and Denis' ability to bring this character to life. Physically, Dr. Yueh is described as a stick figure of a man, with black hair, mustache, and of course the black diamond tattoo on his forehead signifying his imperial conditioning. I really enjoyed this actor's performance in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. He fits the description of Dr. Yueh, and we see him sporting the signature tattoo, but more important than his appearance is his frame of mind. From this picture, I feel like he has embodied who Dr. Yueh is. He is looking off in the distance, and it looks as if his mind is a million miles away, probably with his wife and the terrible purpose he must fulfill. I hope that this will also come across just as much in his performance, as I feel that his character deserves more than what has been previously portrayed. He's definitely a character that will have the opportunity to shine as a crucial piece of Part 1 of Villeneuve's two-part adaptation of this epic story. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Dune and other sci-fi and fantasy content. And let me know your thoughts on the character of Dr. Yueh as well, and what you're hoping to see from this new adaptation. Thank you so much for your support, and as always, have a very nerdy day.